Now let's look at a concept called destructuring assignment. So earlier we saw destructuring. This is somewhat related but slightly different. In destructuring assignment, what happens that we already have an object, and rather than creating so we earlier saw let's say let or const x or some variable is equal to something. Now you see that here is a slightly different syntax, where while declaration you can do something like this. So you understand that if we want to achieve something like this, that obj.name is equal to name and obj.age is equal to age. So you see that this sort of repetition is happening, that let's say we want to have the same variable whatever is inside this, right? Then if that is the case you want, then rather than doing this long thing, if you simply write something like this, then it would be straightforward. And this is a new syntax which is supported in JavaScript ES6, which is called destructuring assignment. So I'll give you just a simple example. So let's say let obj is equal to let's say a5 and b10. Okay. Now if you simply do const, and if you simply do a comma b, then with obj, and let's print a and b separately. So we see that we got 510, right? So this is what we were talking about, that instead of this you could have done simply something like that, just const a is equal to obj dot a, or and again you could have done const b is equal to obj dot b, right? So the same thing you could have done, and this will also work fine. So the shortcut of this is this thing above. Now just to note that instead if you wanted let, then so that let's say right now it is 510, and let's say again I want to change b is equal to let's say or simply b plus plus whatever, then instead of 510 it will be 511. But this thing you could again achieve here by changing this const to let, then both the variables a and b will be sort of, it can be modified because it is declared with let. So again here also it will be 511. So it is now modifiable. But if you do something like this, then again it will give error, right? Because b plus plus is not possible on const variable. So what happens is that when you declare it with let, then all the variables using destructuring assignment are let, and if you do const, then all the variables are const. If you want some let and some const, then sort of you have to do it separately. So let's say a b c 20 is there, right? And you want a and c to be like this, but you want b to be let. So then this will also work fine. This will also work fine. But in one declaration, whatever is the keyword you use, all the variables will be that thing. Next, the destructuring assignment also works for simple for arrays also. So this is the example which we gave for objects, right? But let's say instead we are having a simple array, and let's say 1 2 or let's say 10 20 whatever. Now you could very well do the same thing, like let's say a comma b is equal to let's say arr. Okay, then again if you print a and b, then a is assigned 10 and b is assigned 20. So what happens that is it spreads the sort of takes the individual elements and assigns one by one as the value is provided. Okay, so if you use something like let's say only a, then only a is declared, b is like not declared, right? But let's say you declare b and declare c, and again if you print c, then you will see that since only two elements are there, the third element will be undefined. It will not give you syntax error. So whatever is possible, or whatever is the length of the array is possible, based on that one by one values will come, and will get assigned to these things. So right now it is undefined, but again let's say you have 30 also, then yeah, that's fine, that will work here. Okay, now now let's see, does something like this work? So let's say, obviously let you can again declare, so it will be a, and then you can modify these variables since these are let. So instead of 30 it is 31 because I have changed it, right? But uh, can so, and one more thing, rather than this you can definitely write something like this. So just earlier I took a variable ARR and then assigned it. You can very well write directly like this, and this will also work, right? But what if these variables are already declared, which means that, let's say, let a b c, this thing is also already there, which means that even if this is not there, then abc is undefined, that is fine. But now I cannot redeclare it, right? So if I do something like this, will it work? Will it work? So you see that it works. You see that it works. So ABC was undefined, and now ABC are destructured and assigned, which means that this keyword which I am telling you, that const or let in front, that is not always needed. In fact, if you already have declared it, then you can directly use it like this. One small thing that why this might be needed. So let's say your AB is simple 1020, right? And C is not needed now. So if you print something like this, then it will be 1020. Okay. Now if I do something like this, that let's say I do, we know that this syntax is now working, right? AB is equal to, and now I do AB is equal to B comma A, right? Then what will happen? So let's say here, let's give a divider something. Okay. So we saw that here 1020 is coming. What will be printed here? So you see that it has been swapped. 1020, from 1020 it has become 2010. So you can understand that without using a third variable, okay, in one line you can swap very easily in JavaScript using this syntax. Simply a comma b in this array syntax is equal to b comma a, and automatically as the first part, the values of a and b will be taken, and then they will be swapped and assigned to the values which are pointed in the left. Okay. Still, we saw that even if we don't want this syntax, then again, if we don't know this syntax, then we could very well achieve the same thing using directly assigning these things. But again, if you know this syntax, then this is pretty much shorter. Next, we already said this thing that if you don't have in ARR sufficient number of variables which you are trying to capture here in destructuring, then the rest of the variables will be simply undefined. And in right side, if you have more variables, let's say here two variables are there, in ARR you have three, then all the others are simply discarded because simply whatever you are capturing, only they are assigned in that variable. Okay. Now yeah, so here what I was saying, that 1520 you are not using, so it will simply discarded. But let's say you don't know how many values are there. Let's say 5 values are there, and you know that first one I have to take in A, second one I have to take B. After that I don't know whether it is 5 or 6, after that whatever it may be there, but I want to still capture them, but I want to group them all together. So you can use a syntax something like this. So what happens is that here the first one, A, is taking 5, B will take 10, and this is spread operator. Again, we saw earlier a spread operator. Again, you can use here a spread operator, but here instead of spreading, actually this here a spread operator is working sort of capturing. So you can understand that already some rest is not there that you are spreading. Rather, you are capturing all the rest of the values in this variable rest. So this is important, right? So this is like a pretty neat syntax. So if you have something like let, or directly let's write simply something like a comma b comma and rest of the variables we capture in this is equal to, let's say 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, then we will see that if I print a b and rest, then you'll see that a is 1, b is 2, and rest is actually all the remaining variables are captured as an array. You see, This is an array. And again, this rest is just a convention many people use, but you can use any name, let's say others, and whatever variable in which you capture, you can use that variable to again refer it later words. Okay. So this is fine. You can see that the rest of the things are captured, and this is now an array. Rest is an array. A and B are normal values. Next, whatever we did right now, the same thing, you can try it on your own. The same thing will happen for objects also, which means that if I have obj, then if I do this sort of syntax where again here we are using this bracket, big bracket, block brackets, because this is array. Here we have to use curly braces because this is object destructuring, not array destructuring. And when you do something like that, then again this thing is shortcut for that thing, that obj.name is equal to name, like const name is equal to obj.name, const age is equal to obj.age. So here name and age will be simply Alex and 28, whatever here is there. And rest, if let's say a couple of more properties or one or more properties are there, whatever, those will be captured again as an object. So you see that any name here you give rest or others or object, whatever you give name, then that name, in that name, the rest of the key value pairs will be captured, and you can see that foo and baz, these things are captured, and now info is that. Okay. Next, we were saying that yeah, this name is fine, age is fine, but this is like sort of a restrictive thing, right? That whatever is key here, I am declaring that here only. What if I want to change that name? Like I don't, I want to, yeah, so obviously I can instead, if I want to change, then I can very well write const some other name is equal to obj.name, which means that I want to use some other variable for obj.name rather than name, some different one. Then this syntax will not work, but still you can use a similar syntax rather than writing the bigger whole bigger syntax where it is slightly verbose. Instead of that, you can still write slight modification of this syntax, which is called destructuring assignment, but with renaming. You can rename that, and the syntax is something like this, that const this thing is equal to obj, and again you can put the whole thing instead of this variable here. But the point is that whatever name you are capturing, this means that capture name variable of this obj, but expose it as my name. Okay. And again capture obj.age variable, but the declare don't declare it as age, rather declare it as my age. Okay. So this is important, and sometimes many people are not aware of this syntax, but this is very helpful. So instead of that directly, let's do something. Let's say a comma b is equal to, let's say, a5 and b10. Just I will give a simple example. Okay, and now I print ab. This is straightforward, 5 10 will come, but I am saying that let's change this to num1, let's change it to num2. Okay, so now this thing is shortcut for this thing, that if this thing is obj, then now I am writing that I want to create a variable called num1 and want to give it obj.a. Understand? So earlier when I was not using this, then it was simply like const a is equal to obj. I have to use the same name, but here instead it will be exposed not as a, it will be exposed as the new variable declared will be num1 rather than a. Okay, and again you can do obj.b as num2. So my point is that this whole thing is equivalent to this thing. Understand? So you can understand that it is like shorter syntax. Now, important thing is that now a and b are not defined at all, right? If you try to print a and b, then you see that a is not defined, because obviously I'm declaring num1 and num2, just to be mentioned, right? Not obj, not a or b. So if we write num1 and num2, that will be fine. But a and b are not at all defined. Understand? So num1 is 5, num2 is 10. So this is the shortest syntax which you can use. And again, as mentioned, you cannot directly use these variables because these are not defined at all. These are defined, the value of obj.name is now defined as my name and my age, not as a name or age. So this if you try to access it will give you error. And moreover, whatever we are trying to do, obviously this as we mentioned here, we could have done in a verbose syntax, something like this also. That will also work fine. Okay. Now, final small point is that regarding object literals. So, there is a short syntax for creating objects in a shorter way if we want to have the name of the objects name of the keys of the object is same as the name of the variable. You understand? So name is Alex, age is 28. Okay, now I want to create another object where the key is name and value is Alex. You understand? So I need to write something like this in general. You understand? So name is the key and value is name. So here instead you can hard code any value, right? But you can use variables also, right? So we know that, right? We know that we could very well write obj, let's say obj1 is equal to a5 and b10, right? We know that if we print this, then we will get a5 b10. That is fine, but it's not mandatory that this 5 is uh, some constant, right? It can be, let's say, x, right? And if I have already declared x is equal to 5, then this is fine. This is fine, right? But here what we are trying to do is that what if this x is also a, like same name? So let's say this let a is equal to 5 and then I will have to do a. You understand? So again the answer is correct. A is 5, B is 10. A is, the key is A and value is 5. We know that A is 5 and then B is 10. But this thing can be in ES6, in the newer syntax, this thing can be written in shortcut like this. Like this. Instead of AA, you can simply write A. Understand? So both of these are completely equivalent. Both of these are completely equivalent. So a colon a you can write, instead of a colon a you can write simply a. And similarly, if you already have a variable b is equal to 10 or 20 whatever, then instead of writing b, right, if you want to use the same name, you could very well use this thing. And now you can see that if you print, then you will get the same thing, a5 b10. Okay, so this is a shortcut. If the name of the variable is the same as the name of the key, then rather than using name age, you can simply write name age. That's it. Understand? So we already saw that this sort of simply value separated things are like arrays, right? But here you see that there is no key value pair, simply values are there, and but in curly braces it is there. So it is understood that it is now this shorter syntax rather than, so it is a shortcut for this thing, name age. Okay, so this is almost done for this video. Just a small thing I wanted to tell you, that let's say you are doing something like this. Let's say you are doing something like this, that so let's say key 1 is equal to a and key 2 is equal to 10, and let's write it something like this, and then print obj1. Okay, then key 1 is 5, key 2 is 10. But what if this this thing is not already known? So you know, right, that right now we are writing key 2 hard coding, we are typing key 2. What if this thing is not known ahead of time? This thing is on the fly generated. Understand? On the fly generated, which means that let's say its value is 5. Then I want to make this key 5. You understand? Just some weird thing, but you understand that let's say if its value is key 7, then I want this key to be key 7. Just a scenario, right? So how will I do that? Because this value I don't know. A is like on the fly dynamically, let's say from somewhere this a value has come. How can I change that? So there is another syntax for that in JavaScript, where what you can do is that you can have another variable, let's say x, and you can declare x as whatever you want, and whatever, let's say hello, right? And so right now, if you run right now, what will happen? See, this x is like treated as key, so it is like treated as key, but I don't want to it to be treated as key. I want to be treated as hello. X is hello, but this x is like not used here, right? In fact, because if you write something like this, then this is treated like this thing, this is treated like this thing, right? And that's why this x is coming. I don't want this thing, I want the value of the variable x, and there is a syntax for that. If you put it in in square brackets, then rather than x as the key, it will take the value of x as the key. Okay, so you see, now this value of x is replaced with hello, right? So this is just a smaller syntax, some places you might need. And now just I was saying that, let's say I have a requirement that key a should be there, so then I can very well write something like key and then a, and then here I x. You understand? So you see that now my key is key 7, if this is 7, right? And if this is 5, then this thing is key 5 is equal to 5. So you understand, this part is dynamically generated rather than me statically typing one thing. So sometimes these things are needed, because sometimes you are not aware that what should be key, and key should be based on the data which is coming from, let's say, server or something. So at that point, this sort of syntax can be helpful. And again, this can be any variable, like a, b, c, d, anything, and that same variable you can use here. Okay, so that is a small syntax. So that will be all for this section. See you in the next video.